Not yet. When they start holding the guns.
Not shy. She's been running. Do you ride horses?
Okay, we're going to begin our program. Our speaker is going to be Terry Buckle.
Good morning, and thank you for attending this 2026 Memorial Day ceremony. On September 29, 1988, I enlisted in the Minnesota Army National Guard. I was 25 years old, and I had no idea what I needed to do in order to be ready for the 25 years of military service that followed that enlistment oath. While attending my advanced individual training in the fall of 1989 as a 91 Alpha Combat Medic, the Soviet Union had crumbled in the fall after the fall of the Berlin Wall. It was no longer the formidable fighting force that was feared and respected throughout the world. In a moment of naivete, I asked my drill sergeant, who were we going to fight anymore? There are no major armies that will fear us anymore. In response to my question, I received the greatest piece of advice that I had ever, and probably will ever, hear again. I quote, "Private Buckle, you never know when the balloon is going to go up, and you always have to be ready." Little did I know that those words would be shared by myself hundreds of times as a soldier and as a leader throughout my military career. This expression comes from military history, particularly World War I and World War II, when aerial reconnaissance balloons were launched to signal the start of operations or battles. The ascension of the balloon was a clear and visible signal or cue for troops to prepare for action. So how does this relate to why we're all gathered here today on Memorial Day? As you gaze on each of the American flags that are placed upon the graves of those veterans who are buried on these hallowed grounds, please understand that each of those veterans were trained to be ready at a moment's notice, to follow their orders, and to accomplish the mission given to them. They were ready to fight, they were ready to protect, and they were ready to come home when the mission was over. They were ready when the balloon went up. Today, we remember those military personnel who did not come home with the others, as they made the ultimate sacrifice so we can live in the greatest country in the world. I would ask that you do not grieve over those whom you have come here to remember today. In the words of General George Patton, it is foolish and wrong to mourn men who died. Rather, we should thank God that such men lived. Now we are ready to call the names of all deceased veterans, whether buried here or in other cemeteries, as each of them were ready if and when the balloon went up. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. One note, if a name is not called, you have a veteran that is not here, please reach out to the American Legion or the auxiliary. We'll make sure that name gets on the list. So many times there might be a funeral that's not directed by Andersons in Twin Valley. We don't receive the names, okay? So I just want to say that. Veterans buried in Wild Rice Cemetery, buried overseas or elsewhere, are as follows. Elmer Osgard, Gerald Amundsen, Knut Amundsen, Walter Anderson, Donald Axtell, Leonard Baki, Elvin Buckle, Soren Bergeson, Lawrence Björklund, Owen Braseth, Francis Boreen, Byron Boreen, Harry Boreen, Eugene Burns, Lloyd Burtness, Olive Chamberlain, Arnold Christensen, Clifford Dahlhaug, John Edward Dews, Merlin Eklund, Anthony Flum, Edwin Flum, Kenneth Flum, Gerald Grove, Fred Gunnarsson, Harold Hubadunk, Alan Haugen, Carl Hagen, Lowell Hagen, Simon Haugen, Alan Haugo, Jacob Haugo, Gilbert Hoganson, Marvin Jensen, Lyle Jensen, James E. Jensen, Kenneth Jensen, Norris Jensen, William Johnson, Marvin Korsgaard, Eldred Fitt, Maynard Kvitt, Amos Laporte, Glenn Larson, Charles Larson, Edwin Larson, Lawrence Larson, Leland Larson, Melvin Larson, Timothy Lacey, John Lean, Dave Lindeman, Lowell Lindeman, Larry Malmskog, Palmer Nelson, Ole Nelson, Arthur Olson, Helgi Olson, Norris Olson, Albert Peterson, Oliver Peterson, Leslie Prestegard, Mark Prestegard, Alfred Prestegord, Arnold Prestegord, Erwin Prestegord, Kenneth Prestegord, Lars Prestegord, Norman Puhala, Carl Rasmussen, Ole Rogan, William Rogers, Donald Rood, Philip Seeger, Ingvald Skansgard, Robert Skansgard, Anton Sletten, Ed Steen, Emil Stundal, George Stundal, Louis Stundal, Andrew Thompson, Clayton Thompson, Dwayne Thompson, Lauren Thompson, Michael Thornton, John Torgerson, Albert Underdahl, Oscar Erdahl, Richard Welter, George Wells, Alan Widme, Julius Widme, Hilma Widme. Veterans buried in Emmanuel Cemetery, buried overseas or elsewhere, are as follows. Lars Chernus, Eddie Eriksson, Jens Eriksson, Lovine Earhart, Laverne Earhart, Mylan Evenson, Chester Plum, Carl Gonderman, Clayton Haugen, N.C. Holm, James Hoagland, Monroe Hoagland, Jewett Jacobson, Scott Johnson, Milton Lindbeck, Edward McCullough, Lars Sockersmo, Albert Sandall, Arthur Sandall, Elmer Sandall, Sievert Sandall, Don Wicker.
Honor guard, attention! Please, read. Sergeant, salute the dead. Forward arm. Ready. Aim.
ask that you bow your head in a final prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we deem this a fitting time to pay our respects to our departed comrades. As we stand with bowed heads in reverence to them, let us remember the good deeds they accomplished. Let us revere them as good soldiers who fought the good fight in a just cause. Let us silently pray for peace, the peace that passes all understanding. And let us in mind and soul consecrate our hearts and lives to the real America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, the America worth fighting for. As we stand in silence to our departed comrades, may we sincerely say, may their souls rest in peace. Let us also remember the POWs and MIAs still unaccounted for in the wars and the conflicts. Amen.
Honor guard, attention! Fall!
Hey, who pulled the trick on?
What's that? Yeah. You can go